Hey, welcome back to Out of Spec. This right here is the 2021 Ranger, but as you can probably tell, it looks a little different. This is the Tremor package, which makes it a little more aggressive and a little more up my alley. I have this out here in beautiful Colorado, and it's very capable, rugged off-road spec. But what I'm actually going to do is move with it. That's right, I have this as well as my in-laws F-150 in roughly the same color, and I'm going to kind of do a comparison to see how they both work in real-world conditions of hauling some stuff around town, because that's what most people do with trucks. Granted, this is very capable off-road. It has almost 10 inches of ground clearance, which is up from the normal Ranger. It has Fox shocks and bigger 32-inch all-terrain tires on these 17-inch rims, and do people still call them rims? Wheels. And it just looks awesome. It looks aggressive. It actually fixes the Ranger, in my opinion. I've liked the Ranger ever since it was reintroduced a couple years ago, but this new Tremor package makes it go from intriguing to actually something I love to look at. I always thought the Ranger proportions when it came back a couple of years were a little off. It didn't look quite wide enough for how tall it was. I don't know, it just didn't look quite right to me. But this Tremor actually makes it a little taller, but a little wider, especially with these wheels. So I think it looks quite aggressive, quite fun, and I'm actually getting a lot of looks around town and people are just like, that looks like a cool truck. So let's take a look at the Ranger Tremor up close. I'll do a quick walk around here. This is kind of a first impressions video, as well as can you move with it? So I'm moving about 10 miles south, so not too far of a commute, and no major highways or anything. So we'll just see how much I can fit in this thing and how it does. So again, here is the 2021 Ranger Tremor in rapid red. It has these new general all-terrain tires. They are again 32-inch tires with 17-inch wheels. Got the nice Ranger Lariat trim. The Tremor is also available as an XLT. And as a whole, I mean, it just looks kind of aggressive, like, and you got the black front kind of grille with the Ranger right above it there. Does have the Super Crew cab, although it's a little smaller than the F-150. And a bed, which is again smaller than the F-150, but you shouldn't really directly compare this to the F-150, because if you want that size, you would buy an F-150. Then you have the Ranger text around the back here, really beautiful lights with little Ranger text in there. The Tremor badging on the back, which kind of replaces where you'd normally see the FX4 badging, and you have this like finish in the bed, which is the Ford Tough Bed, the spray-in bed liner. And that's that same material down here on the footsteps, which I actually like footsteps like this. I don't like the whole running board. It looks fine, but I think these look just a little bit more interesting and more like specific use case. No automatic folding mirrors on this, they are manual. And then the front fascia is, I love it. It's got these like red nostrils right here and the kind of split grille across the side, and then you have a couple fake vents, which is not my favorite thing, but more so functional down here. A couple tow hooks. It's just a nice little aggressive truck. And this is equipped with the towing package, of course, which gives you 7,500 pounds of towing capacity. You can plug in all your towing necessities there. Loop it through there. Yeah, it's very functional. And the bed itself, the payload is just over 1,400 pounds, which is quite usable. And you have some very functional tie downs in here, so it can do a lot of stuff that most people would need. It's definitely not your, super capable Super Duty with the 6-foot bed or 8-foot bed, but for the average person, this is a compelling truck in a growing market of smaller trucks that people want to make it easier to drive in the city, drive in their neighborhood. It's really a interesting market segment that is growing, much to my surprise, because trucks have been growing in size over the years. The F-150 nowadays is bigger than it was probably 15, 20, 25 years ago. So with the F-150 growing, they've had to bring back the smaller Ranger and soon the Maverick. And this is, even though it's the Lariat trim, which is, kind of a mid trim, it's not the highest, not the lowest, but you do have a few things missing from more premium trims. Even the sound of this unlocking, I mean, it sounds like a really kind of cheap metallic door, and you have these down here instead of what you would see kind of up on the pillar there. But getting into the Ranger, I love these seats. This is a very nice mix of materials. You have the leather, the really cool trimmer badging to match the outside of the truck, and the badging here is nicely stitched versus the one on the outside of the truck. Looks like a really cheap decal, and I'm not a big fan of that. But this is actually very nice quality. The seats are great quality, of course. Getting inside. So again, this door, let me close that again. Oh, that is not a great door closing sound. But you have a lot of useful things in here. So you do not have wireless CarPlay, so you do require, the cable like it's 2005. But getting it fired up, got a nice roar of that 2.3 liter EcoBoost. It is a 4-cylinder turbo, which sounds pretty small for a truck like this, and that is something that very distinctly separates it from the Raptor. You don't have a fully digital gauge cluster. This part in the middle is analog, and you have the little screens on the left and right there, which have been Ford's staple for quite some time now. But then you have the infotainment screen, which is still sync, but not the newest, highest end sync. You don't have the bigger 13-inch screen from the F-150s, and it doesn't do wireless CarPlay again. Now it does CarPlay really well, but something I really dislike is, despite all the climate controls down here, if you want to just adjust, air on your face and your feet, you have to close out of CarPlay and go back into climate on the screen to adjust it there, and then you can go back into CarPlay. I wish they just have dedicated buttons down here. And I do find myself reaching for, you have twin 12-volt outlets here. I keep finding myself going like this to adjust my temperature, but it is buttons. However, that's not a big deal once you get used to it. Surprisingly, this does have heated seats, which is nice, especially out here in Colorado. And it's a really, well-made interior. It's a lot of plastic everywhere, but one thing you may notice, not a single bit of piano black plastic to be found. This is probably the first car I can remember in modern history without that fingerprint attractive oil showing piano black glossy plastic. So that is a huge mark in its favor, in my opinion. Nice little standard glove box there. Cool Ranger badging on this nice plastic piece there. So it's a lot of plastic, but it looks okay. Got your auxiliary switches up here, so you can do things like air compressor or a winch or external lights, and all those can flip up and down. Solid wipers here, does have automatic sensing wipers. And as far as driver assist go, you have cruise control, and it does have lane assist, but not really lane centering. And you do have the adaptive cruise control, which is nice. So pretty much every feature I would want on one of these trucks. Then you have your drive selector for 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, low and high, and of course some towing buttons down here, and the automatic engine shut off, which is the first thing I do when I get in here. I still wish it was an option to just say I don't ever want that on, but I kind of understand where they're coming from. Standard USB ports, by the way, USB-A, they are not USB-C. Down here in the center console is just a bit more storage. Not super small, not super big. Functional cup holders. It's really not a bad place to be. The B&O Bang & Olufsen sound system is fantastic. So that's a nice feature on this truck, and I don't think I could buy a truck from Ford without equipping it with that amazing sound system. It doesn't really have like a specific character of sound, it's just quality sound. So it's not, not to the level of some other manufacturers where I'm just looking for excuses to play my music, but this is a great space to be and listen to your music. But other than that, it's just a really simple interior. There's not too much going on. I'm not overwhelmed with unreasonable buttons. Actually, for once, wish there were just a couple more buttons for the climate control, like I mentioned. Nice little gear selector here. It's feels very quality, even though it's a lot of plastic and not a lot of soft touch points. In fact, very few. The only soft touch is the seats, this thing, and the door right here. That is it. All the rest is rugged, hard plastic, which is okay because this is the Ranger Tremor. This is the one you'd be taking on the trails and probably getting mud everywhere, and you'd want to wipe it all down. So that's acceptable. Of course, I have rubber floor mats down there. The rubber floor mats are a nice little touch to complete the package. So enough with up here. Let's go take a look at the back. It's kind of an awkward height because the steps aren't necessarily needed, but they do help. It's almost like too high to just step in the ground, but too low to make the steps actually useful, because then I step up and I'm just already too tall. Granted, I am 6 feet, so that's something to consider. And here I am sitting behind myself. I do have actually a fair amount of knee room here. Got my Doug DeMuro shorts on. Yeah, you do have USB ports down here, a nice 110 volt right there to plug in your computer or gaming devices, whatever, for the kids. It's actually fairly spacious. Again, not as wide as the F-150 cab, so you can't fit like 3 really full-size adults back here comfortably, but it is possible. Got a nice little center console here with cup holders, and that's about it. Cup holders in the door as well, or water bottle holders, honestly. And this little window right here is not automatic. You do have to open it manually. And it's little, but you know, the rear glass is pretty little from inside here. Yeah, little thin headrests, which actually feel fine. They just appear thin. And then this little guy, that's pretty sad. Basically, the center person would need to be pretty small, but definitely bigger than the original Rangers back in the day. So overall, nice place to be. You can't actually control this light from back here, and that, oh, look at that. Yeah, not the best headliner, and no panoramic sunroof or anything, but again, it's not a F-150 Limited or Platinum. This is a Ranger Tremor. You're supposed to care more about the off-roading capability and not so much the interior luxury. But that's it. I mean, that's the interior and exterior of the Ranger Tremor in a brief moment. And popping the hood, let's see the power plant up front. There we go. Nice kind of pneumatic hood lifts. I love that. And look at this engine bay. Look at the tiny little engine. This is a 2.3 liter inline 4 with a turbo, and that's putting out 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque, which is no small number. But again, this is a fairly good-sized Super Crew cab truck with a 5-foot bed, so I'd say maybe a bit underpowered, but we'll get to that in the driving. It actually is not bad at all, and it's a capable power plant and actually a bit more efficient. You can squeeze out almost 30 miles per gallon on the highway. Not quite, unless you really ginger it, but this is mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission, which is actually pretty nice. It stays relatively out of your way. Then you have the 5-foot bed, which is pretty good size. You can option it with a 6-foot bed on the Ranger, but I don't know if the Tremor will actually let you get that. So this may be what you're stuck with the Tremor. But I think proportionally, it looks fantastic. Especially if you're wanting to go off-road, you don't want too long of a bed or wheelbase. Then you have the towing package. You have the towing back here. It'll tow 7,500 pounds, which is very solid for a truck like this. And the payload in the bed is, or the truck overall, is 1,430 pounds, I think. So not quite 1,500, but that's a good amount of payload for a truck like this. And again, these are very usable numbers. If you're wanting crazy specs, you're probably looking more for the F-150 or even the Super Duty market. But as far as a smaller, more city-friendly truck, this is fantastic. So that's your little walk around of the Ranger Tremor in the Lariat trim. So great truck, right? Looks gorgeous. This rapid red is very eye-catching and really beautiful. A little different from the red from some of the other previous F-150s, but that's okay. Ford has good colors. But yeah, that was the exterior and the interior kind of first impressions walk around. So I'm going to basically load this up and move. I'm going about 10 miles south of town to our new house. So we'll see kind of how capable this is in a average, scenario where you're loading stuff into it and taking it across town.
Can't forget the spicy water. Oh yeah.
All right, we got the little Ranger Tremor all loaded up and ready to go to the new house. But look what I have with me. My parents' red F-150. Slightly different shades of red. That is a rapid red. That is whatever was on the 2019 F-150 XLT. And trim is another difference. We have the XLT trim on the F-150 and the Lariat trim on the Ranger with the Tremor package. So let's take a little closer up look together. Here we go. You can immediately see the 5.5 foot bed on the F-150 versus the 5 foot bed on the Ranger, just a little bit shorter. But yeah, they're similar, obviously, both distinctly Ford. But the F-150 XLT has a bit more emphasis on the chrome. I mean, it's got chrome front bumper, chrome wheels, chrome grille with the double slats across the middle, chrome badging, chrome handles, chrome running board, chrome rear bumper. And then Ranger's like, nope, we're blacking all that out. So it's still slightly different. It's like a plastic that looks almost chrome. It's like a dark black chrome or something like that. The wheels are the same material as the kind of arch guards, and the F-150 does not have that. I'm sure it's something you can get on it, but comparatively speaking right now, not an option. And then you have kind of blacked out badging and the blacked out grille. It's very interesting, the approach they took on the Tremor, and I love it. Get rid of the chrome. Chrome was a thing of the past. There's cool cars nowadays with a little bit of chrome here and there, but interestingly they kept it on this very classic, oddly sticking out Ford badge. But very similar trucks overall. You can see that the Ranger is obviously a bit narrower. When I was backing it up into this spot, I could see F-150 out both mirrors. So you can kind of see F-150 is a little wider that way and a little wider that way, but not much. They are very similar as far as overall width and overall length. If you see them on the street together like that you do right now, it's crazy how similar they are, which is why the Ranger surprised me when it came out. I expected it to be, noticeably smaller like it was when they discontinued it around a decade ago. So it's not too often when you see the F-150 and the Ranger back to back, literally. But it's interesting to see the immediate details and differences between the two. So I thought I'd show you. One's got the more aggressive road, one's more for the street. Both very usable, functional vehicles, but especially with this view right here, you can see just how much more cab space you have with the F-150. My in-laws have the 2 bench seats on the F-150, which seats 6 adults, full-size adults, comfortably. I mean, the front and back has ample leg room, except the front middle seat is a bit small, but the back of the Ranger is noticeably more constrained, and there is no front bench seat to even compare, and there's not even an option for that on the Ranger. And inside the F-150, here we have that big center console, which does flip up to be another seat. But otherwise, pretty similar interior as far as look and feel. Ford just knows how to make its interior, but the back is really got some fishing poles there. I mean, just look at that ample leg room. That's phenomenal. Plenty of headroom. It's just a very, very spacious cabin. I was floored when they got it. Of course, you have a bed cover on this version that they added. But just comparing that to the Ranger, I mean, it's phenomenal. This is of course full of things, but it's just obviously more constrained. I mean, look at the lack of legroom down there. And even the front is just a bit more cozy, I guess you could say. So again, it makes me really look forward to the Maverick, because I think the Ranger, when it came out, when they said it was going to be re-released, I was hoping for literally the Maverick. So it's interesting that they kind of duped us with the Ranger, gave us obviously a more functional, bigger truck than the Maverick, but now they're still appealing to those like me who want something truly small. So we'll see how the Ranger compares to the Maverick when we get our hands on those. But for now, Ranger, F-150. Both very capable. This one's been great to load stuff up in, so I'm going to get going to the new house before the Colorado summer afternoon thunderstorms roll in, which is right now. All right, we got the Ranger Tremor fired up. It does have that distinct kind of Ford pickup truck roar, which doesn't really match the engine when you actually see what's under the hood on paper. Just watch this acceleration right here as soon as I leave this intersection. Just hear that roaring. The big all-terrain tires are kicking up rocks and dirt and mud that they pulled up from my driveway. Good riddance to that dirty alley. But yes, I wanted to take you on my ride down to my new home and just talk about the Ranger and how it compares to the F-150, and really just how it is in and of itself. Right off the bat, these seats are very comfortable. If anything, I actually do like them more than the F-150s. The Ranger seats are just more smaller and attainable, and they, I think, hold you a bit better. And that is actually comparing apples to apples. I'm talking about the F-150 captain's chairs. Of course, my in-laws with their front bench seat is noticeably different, but that's a bench seat. It's just, you know, not the same. I can't really compare it. But these definitely hold me really well. This is probably my favorite seat in a Ford pickup truck. And on this Lariat trim, you have the fully adjustable electric seats with the lumbar support on both sides, passenger and driver. They don't, you know, cheap out on the passenger for you. But it is different from the F-150 as far as infotainment and just a technology experience. This particular model is not equipped with any sort of Blue Cruise or even the full like Ford Pilot Assist. I do have, again, lane keep assist, which will nudge me back over if I start crossing the line, but it doesn't actively center me. And it does have radar cruise control, but even that it's just not quite the full self-driving suite, if you would. And something else is you don't have the crazy, you know, 13-inch display in front of the steering wheel or the 13-inch display over in the center console. You're not surrounded by computer screens showing you infinite infotainment as well as, you know, crazy graphics like the F-150. When you the F-150, when you switch between the 7 driving modes, it has crazy graphics in front of you that show, you know, what dirt or the towing or the all-terrain like mud and snow or race or normal or eco. You don't have any of that in here, which in some ways is more welcoming. This is just a more down-to-earth Ford truck, which is somewhat ironic because in my head that should be the F-150, but it's just a slightly different market. You're not having, this isn't the like staple best-selling truck in all of America, and it doesn't have quite the history of the F-150, so it does make sense that that's their flagship. But it's nice to see that this still gets a lot of good features. Now going up this hill here, the turbo really kicks in, and it doesn't really feel sluggish. That's something I expected. My in-laws F-150 has the 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. This is an inline-4 single-turbo 2.3-liter, which on paper just sounds so much weaker than theirs. But it still is capable. Granted, this is a lighter, smaller truck, but not by a whole lot. but the power plant doesn't really leave me wanting for that much. It's definitely not a sprinter. It won't just get you going really quickly. I'm not talking about sprinter vans. I'm talking about, you know, the running action. It won't just send you on your way really fast, but it's capable. Let me turn off that annoying engine auto shut off. Good riddance. I guess a question for you guys, if you happen to know, is do you like that engine auto shut off feature? Do you have an F-150 with it and wish you could turn it off indefinitely? I know there's a way to get into the dash and put like a resistor on there to where it thinks it's always clicking that button, but I don't know if that actually voids the warranty, which is why my father-in-law does not want to do it, which is understandable. You don't want to affect any sort of warranty. They bought that F-150 new and they love it. So his routine when he gets in the car is, you know, put on your seatbelt, plug in your phone for CarPlay, and turn off the auto shut off. See how this cruise control does in low speeds here. So on the left little digital screen is a bunch of information you can cycle between. Right now I have it on a digital speedometer. I just like having that in addition to the analog one. And just to the right of that digital speedometer is... So the radar cruise didn't exactly... I mean, it did catch me. It, you know, pre-collision assist came up, did the huge flashing radar signs that sound like a tornado is entering your vehicle. And it did brake for me. I was ready to brake, and I wasn't sure what it would do. And so it's, I don't know, it's not really a like full stop and go traffic cruise, at least not from what I can tell so far. But that shows me on the left there, right by that digital speedometer, the like how it senses a car in front of it, and it'll tell whether or not it senses both lanes on either side of you. You have a decently sized screen over here, probably about 8 inches, and it shows CarPlay, of course, and you can go back into Ford Sync and just do settings here. Again, the most annoying factor of the infotainment experience, at least while driving, is if I want to make any major changes to the climate control, it just requires me completely exiting CarPlay and going back to Ford Sync and finding the climate screen, and then adjusting, yes, I want it on my face and my feet. Then you can go back into CarPlay, back to what you were looking at. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I wish there were more buttons over here. And I do like how high this sits. Again, the Tremor package puts those really, you know, off-road capable all-terrain tires on there. And the wheels, it just all makes it a little bit wider of a stance and a little bit more ride height. You have 9.7 inches of ground clearance, which is up almost an inch from the normal traditional Ranger right now. And I really like how it sits. It feels very planted, and it feels, you know, very upright like most Fords. The riding position is very similar to that of the F-150. Of course, with that improved ride height is slightly better approach, breakover, and departure angles for all of you off-road folk. Very minor improvements. I mean, the approach and breakover more so, I think, but just a couple degrees. This would be a really fun truck to customize. Of course, we always review cars that are completely bone stock from the manufacturer, but it is always fun to think of things you could do to improve it even further. And Ford actually plans ahead in that case. I mean, the new Bronco, case in point, they have all these planned aftermarket accessories that are officially sanctioned. But you have 6 auxiliary switches up here, which are great. You can add light bars or air compressors or, I don't know, different things you need to add power to, and you can just flip them up and down right here. So it's very ready and capable for any sort of off-road experience. I would definitely add a winch if I was a really serious trailblazer, but that's all up to you. I retract my earlier statement about the mirrors. They do auto-fold. There's a button here to do it, and you can do it at speed, which I just did. And now, as I'm testing going over the line a bit, safely of course, no one's to the right of me, it is steering me back a little bit. but not very well. It's really not a very reliable or trustworthy system, and it's not meant to be one that drives you entirely, so don't treat it as such. But it is nice that it does catch quite a bit of erroneous behavior on the road, and it's definitely safer than not having it at all. Alright, so we'll see how the acceleration does from this stoplight. Now again, the power figures are 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. I have loaded the bed down a bit, as well as the cab, but a lot of the stuff is relatively lightweight. It was just kind of bulky things I couldn't fit in our CUV. And keep a note, I am at over a mile in altitude. I am about 5,300 feet at this point, so it's definitely not going to be as potentially sprightly as it would be at sea level unloaded, but we'll see how it goes. It really does have a lot of get up and go for normal stop and go stoplight scenarios. I mean, I'm keeping up with this Volvo in front of me that's obviously a bit more capable. And going uphill here, it's still keeping up just fine. The 10-speed transmission does shift a lot, but it stays out of your way for the most part. I'm not really noticing it shift all that much. The screen over here on the left does let you look at a lot of things and adjust a lot of settings. Display mode, of course, could be digital speedometer or tire pressure or the average speed if you want to know that for some reason. Distance to empty, or you can actually have the tachometer over there digitally, which is kind of fun. And you even have off-road gauges, so you can see your degree of incline or decline, or kind of rotation, or even the torsion of your different suspension. I like the digital speedometer because it also has the distance to empty, which is fairly accurate in Fords. And then over on the right screen, you can have your entertainment, your navigation, or the phone. Unfortunately, there is no miniature map. If you want the map, you have to rely on the center screen for that. It just has a compass if you pick the navigation, and the speed limit sign, which is actually convenient. Alright, he's pulled over. Let's get back up to speed here. Putting my foot down. Nice roar from the engine. I mean, it sounds bigger than it is. It acts bigger than it is. It's very impressive. It just shows how good Ford is with small power plants. Just looking at, something really sporty like their hot hatchbacks, the Fiesta ST. Famous, wonderful hot hatchback with a relatively small, I think 1.6 liter engine. Puts out over 200 horsepower. Very impressive. But that's it. That's driving the Ford F-150 Tremor down kind of a highway along the mountains. Yeah, let me go summarize my thoughts. All right, well, there you have it. My initial thoughts on the Ford Ranger Tremor, and how functional it was to actually help me move, and how I thought about it compared to that F-150 right there. So, yes, genuinely a good truck, and actually probably one I'd more lean towards, just because I value smaller cars that are easier to park, in the cities, easier to drive in the cities. I understand the value and the capability of the F-150, and there are a lot of reasons to get that over the Ranger. Again, it's not really a competitor, it's just a different option from Ford, and I appreciate options. Some people find them overwhelming. I think it's a good idea. So, what do you think of the Ranger? What do you think of the Ranger Tremor specifically? We'll see you in the next video.